in fact, or you lost your sister, or you're recovering from an addiction. None of that matters. At the end of the day, that cow's hungry. And if you don't feed them too many times, you'll see it on them, and eventually they die. They rely completely on you. And it's the same for the plants. It does not matter what's going on, where you're at, how that works. Either you water it or you don't. That's the key. And, you know, I got plants right there on my desk. And no matter what's going on, I'm accountable to them. And I feel bad when they don't get watered, and it's my job. It's no one else's job. That list, that ecosystem map that we see ahead of us, those have to be watered. They have to be tended. They have to be taken care of by people. And if they're not, they'll die. They won't get adoption. They won't launch. They won't get there. That's the ultimate truth. And that's why I really enjoy this stage of the project. We've given people a foundation, however imperfect, to realize their dreams. And the community, you're in charge of that. You get to see that. You get to decide what you support, what you don't support. It's not my place or purpose. It's yours. You get to decide what you vote to fund and what you don't vote to fund. You get to decide which stake pool you delegate to, because there's actually the IDO, the initial delegation offering now. These people are delegating to pools to support the development of some software. It's a novel distribution, and it's a novel concept for funding. And in the coming months, these things are going to be your choices. I think, 13 days, 14 days, the HFC event happens. And there's a lot to do. A lot of things are going to take some time to turn on, but it'll go so quickly. And you're going to wake up in hundreds of applications and thousands of applications. The community is there. People are passionate. They're excited. But the hard days will come as the enthusiasm starts waning a little bit, and we get into the reality of actual software life cycles and support desks and version 2 and version 3 and version 4. That is what separates the people who have integrity from the people who don't. If we've built good foundations and a good ecosystem, then I believe you will all, as a community, collectively be better judges than most, and we'll have a lot less problems. There is no greater example of this than in the certification and verification ecosystem that's going to be built around Cardano. It's unique to Cardano in this respect. So Cardano has the capacity built within the languages to leverage years, if not decades, of formal methods, ideas, because of the functional programming nature. And we have a lot of partners like Cuvic and runtime verification and Twig and others who are throwing their hat into the ring to provide services or infrastructure to allow a dApp developer to show proof to the community that their dApp follows a standard. Higher quality code, better assurance of semantical correctness, and potentially even better security. You, the community, have to demand that. You have to use dApps that follow that rigor and don't use the ones that don't. It falls upon your lap. Questions you ask, how you think. Now, we'll be here, always here, can't leave, got lobsters to feed. And I'll give, of course, my 2 cents from time to time. But, of course, I can't endorse applications one way or the other. If I see something interesting, I'll, of course, talk to them. But it's not my place to pick winners and losers. It's yours collectively as a community. And it's not my place to say who's real, who's not real. It's for the builders of these things to show that they're real to you, the community. That is the reality that we're working our way into over the next few months. And it's going to be fun to see. I think we've laid good soil, and I think you guys have good seeds. And as long as they're watered, I do believe we're going to have a great forest. Okay. Let's get to your questions, huh? All right. Charles, do you believe that cryptocurrency could lead to a Ubuntu society and truly allow mankind to expand further into deep space? I believe so. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the sci-fi future. I think that might be a carrot emoji. Okay, Hal 9000XL, who's, I think that's the little girl from the Addams Family. This concept of societal evolution is a tremendously important component of what we do in the cryptocurrency space. People often ask what type of company is input output. And I say we're not a cryptocurrency company. We're not even a blockchain company. These are tools in a toolbox. We're a systems company, the systems of the world, the voting system, the property system, the governance systems, the payment and settlement systems, all of these things that you take for granted, you're born into. When you are Swiss, there's a different set of rules about what it means to be Swiss than if you're born in Zambia or Argentina. All of those systems, they're going to be upgraded, changed. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out, how do we build things that doesn't require a king or a leader or a CEO or a prime minister or a small group of special people. In the United States of America, it's 1 + 9 + 5, 35. The vast majority of my life, the things that happen in my life, are controlled by a president, 9 Supreme Court justices, and 535 lawmakers. Huge impact, whether we're in war or not, war or peace, my property rights, my basic human rights, the tax rates, how land works, all these things controlled by that. And if not them, plus 50 governors and their associated state legislators. Less than 10,000 people in the United States have control over 300 million domestically. And because we have an empire, billions of people. There's got to be a better way than that. Honestly, it's not hard to corrupt 10,000 people. It's not hard to find 10,000 idiots and put them in positions of power. There's got to be a different way where we have a lot more control over our lives. What we do as a systems company is we ask that fundamental question. We try to build tools, techniques, economic systems, and pressures to push people in that particular direction. But at the end of the day, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. And so ultimately, people have to adopt the new way of doing things and have faith and confidence that that social fiction is better than the ones that came before it. Will you integrate Solana at Charles Hoskinson? It's not my call. I mean, you guys are going to do it as much as me. Solana can do it. It's an open ecosystem. Now, it's probably in reference to my tweet. I noticed Solana has been getting a lot of adoption, and it's been getting a lot of buzz and talk, and it's certainly performing well in the markets. And whenever that occurs, I always take a step back and I say, okay, well, who are these guys? And I'm genuinely curious. It's gotten to the point where we really should sit down and read the protocol and see what's novel and interesting. So I commissioned this morning a business intelligence report to be written. I reached out to some people in the Solana community, and they were very helpful. They sent me over a Twitter private message, several links and places to look, and I'll read through it. And I'll probably have a stronger opinion and a lot more to say a little bit later down the road. But I mean, I think everybody should have that mentality. Once certain thresholds are accomplished and milestones are accomplished, we should ask, who are you? Where you come from? What do you believe in? Where do you want to go? All of these basic things. And Solana's gotten to that particular point. Now, partnership at the input-output level, if there was such a thing, it would have to break down to either an area of economic collaboration or area of engineering collaboration or an area of scientific collaboration. And there are some cryptocurrency ecosystems we work with in more than one of those categories. So obviously we'd have to see what they do. They have to see what we do. And if there's something that seems to make sense, like we're both trying to solve the same problem, then of course we'd pursue something. But as it stands right now, there's no relationship. As it stands right now, it was just a genuine question. Tell me more. I'd like to learn more. And I hope they return the favor and they learn a lot more about Cardano, and the two communities can get to know each other. Nothing is accomplished by hate and division and maximalism. Everything is accomplished by trade and cooperation. Why is Ergo not in the top 10? A, because there's not enough in circulation, and B, it's not on enough exchanges yet. But in terms of technology and utility, I think Ergo is definitely an amazing ecosystem, got great people, and I really like what Alex has done. Regarding smart contract integration, are you still on track to do it September 12th? Yes, sir. When is the third cohort? Probably at the end of the conference. That'll be announced because PAB will be solidified, and also the Prism Pioneer program is going to begin as well. Charles, I'd love to hear your elaborated arguments for dismantling the fair points mentioned in the crypto colonialism article in CoinDesk against Cardano. Thanks. There are no fair points in that article. It's a completely unfair, inhuman thing done by one of these social justice warriors that has very limited experience in the jurisdiction. Crypto can't build roads. That's true. But people build roads, and people have to be paid and have the resources and expertise and knowledge and ability to build roads. Where do they get those things from? From systems. If you have bad systems, you don't get roads. You got good systems, you get them. What crypto does is it gives you a new system. And once it's installed, the system has properties about it which are better universally for each and every person in that economy. Doubt me? Ask yourself this. Would you like to live in a country with free and fair elections? Simple yes, no questions. Would you like to live in a country with sound, stable money? Would you like to live in a country where it's easy to get money in and out of the country? Would you like to live in a country where you're treated equally to everyone else? And there aren't people who have special considerations or favors because they won the genetic lottery or the geographic lottery, born to the right family, right name, right political connections? Yes or no? Would you like to live in a country where the property that you live on, you earned, and you think you own can't be stolen from you by a nepotistic, corrupt company or entity? Would you like to live in a country where the things you have a right to know are guaranteed and the accomplishments you make are recorded properly so you can prove them to other people? Yes or no? And we can go down the list. All of these things are contingent upon the operating system of that country and the belief that those things are credible. You don't believe me? Okay. You have two candidates. You're an HR director. One of them graduated from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The other one graduated from a university in Kigali. They both have PhDs in computer science. Which one of them would you hire knowing only that? All things being equal, let's say the curriculum's identical, you'd probably hire the MIT graduate. Why? Because you think it's a more reputable organization. Why? Because the brand and reputation and the faith in that institution is higher than the other. And that's the problem. So how do you get ahead if that's your only access to education? Now let's change it up a little bit. Let's say that the person who graduated at MIT was last in their class. The person who graduated at Kigali's is solvent. You still are judged by the brand and reputation of the institution. How does that person get ahead? Is it colonialism for saying that we can improve the systems? And how exactly would we do so? By coming in and changing them or by creating a self-serve system? The point of cryptocurrencies is there's not central coordination or central permission keeping for the system to be integrated and installed. Don't believe me? Who did Bitcoin then? The camel herder in Mongolia who has his Bitcoin. Tell me, was there some committee that woke up and said, boy, we really need Batuza to buy Bitcoin? Those Gobi camel herders, they have to do it. Yep, we need a guy out there. It's a good story, good PR. Let's go find him, convince him. He made the decision himself. So let me get this straight, CoinDesk. It's colonialism to give people open source tools no one controls, to put the freedom of globalization and self-determination in their own hands and improve their systems so that they're on par with the rest of the world, if not better, and they can fairly compete with the rest of the world. That's colonialism. Just because that can't build roads, I don't think you understand anything if you view it that way. And unfortunately, you see a lot of this. The cynical 25, 30, 35-year-olds, they got their liberal arts degree and they think they know everything, and they've been all around the world how everything works. The evils of the world are all about dealing with scarcity at the end of the day, the fear of it or the reality of it. And the whole field of economics is the study of human behavior under scarcity. If resources are unlimited, no one really cares. Doesn't matter. But when resources are finite, who gets to decide how they get to decide? Who gets to allocate? Who has access? Who doesn't have access? These types of things. That's where governments come in. Corrupt governments are ones that keep the pie small. Good, well-constructed governments grow the pie for everybody, and everybody prospers from it. Systems make good governments, not the other way around. Bad governments make bad systems. Good systems make good governments. And I think that was totally lost, and that's totally beyond the point. And they say, oh, they have all these connectivity problems and infrastructure problems. Oh, fuck you. They're going to solve that too, themselves, because there's a lot of money in the developing world. There's a lot of value in the developing world. African entrepreneurs are going to solve the African connectivity issues. In many cases, better, faster, and cheaper than we do. They're not going to have four monopolies beating each other up that are state-sponsored. No, there's going to be thousands of ISPs, thousands of different ways to connect. Oh, they have the right computing infrastructure. Africans will figure that out for Africans, not us. Okay? And they're going to do it better than we do. They'll get more, better, faster, cheaper. And that infrastructure alone is all that's required for new systems that are better than our systems. Give them access to the systems, they know what to do. They'll get it done. And when they do, collectively, the wealth will build to an extent that it's comparable to ours. And then suddenly those roads get built. And they're not just roads, they're hyperloops. They're not just roads. They're hypersonic aircraft. They're not just roads. They're the Matternet. A lot of new things will come that we can't get here because we have blinders on and bad systems. How do we stop political corruption? Well, it's a combination of systems that enforce transparency and punish those who are corrupt. It's also a reality that those who are corrupt can make money off of the system as it is. If the system is more prosperous, they make a lot more money in a new system. And even if they're already wealthy and powerful, look at the story of Jack Ma. It's a great warning of what happens when you don't live in a rule of law, free society. You can be the wealthiest man in your country who every day has a Rolodex filled with heads of state, regularly meeting with the most powerful people in the world, and you pissed off one person, and because you pissed off that one person, now you're filling your calendar with golf, and learning how to paint, and reading Taoist poetry, and staying out of the spotlight, and flying to Beijing to apologize for the indiscretions of the state, while the Communist Party slowly but surely tears your companies apart and hands them to their friends. And at some point, you end up gulagged when no one's looking. Political corruption is not a monolithic entity and a fact of life. It's a consequence of a system and a set of beliefs and an economic realities. Change the system, the beliefs, and the economic realities, the corruption changes and the corrupted actors change. And either they do or their own people will hang them. Charles, can you please tell us more about your biotech company you were setting up with your brother? All right. Well, it's called Hoskinson Biotechnologies. And my brother and I are really interested in regenerative medicine and anti-aging. Also did it with my dad. So my brother, dad, and I are co-owners. My dad and brother are both doctors. They're internists. And my dad's been practicing medicine for over 30 years. My brother's been practicing for a few years. He graduated in Colorado and he moved up to Wyoming. And anyway, we're looking into treatments and we're looking into the science of anti-aging. So we're in silent mode, and what we're going to do is the same thing we did with IO Global. IO Global what I did was hired the best and brightest scientists in the field, and we wrote 111 papers, and we kind of learned how this entire industry works. And then we built Cardano as an example product of these things. And now we're building out a digital transformation portfolio to go and change nation states and companies and build other infrastructure, products, and services. Okay, well, similarly, when you look at biotechnology, we're right at the edge of a renaissance in medicine and biology, where all these really geeky scientists, they've been sitting in labs for a long time, thick glasses, and they're studying a axolotl or a jellyfish that lives forever or a newt or a salamander. And they say, wow, they have this tremendous regenerative capacity. They get old, they form a cyst, they come out young again. They're biologically immortal. Wow, they have ways of, regrowing limbs and healing wounds that would be mortal for humans, but somehow they survive these things. And we're not so much different, those creatures and us. So they've been studying these things for a long time and learning all the secrets of that stuff. And little by little, those secrets will slow drip their way into medicine. There's a lot of cynicism and skepticism in medicine. There's a lot of belief that innovation doesn't happen, and rightfully so, because the system is broken. There's plenty of brilliant biologists and brilliant doctors and brilliant scientists who really want to do a lot of good. And they get very cynical because they spend a career and they realize first it takes 10 years, 20 years to bring a drug to market, $1 billion. And the innovation investments are seldom for revolutionary things. They're for treatments and evolutionary things. They're for slightly better, a new chemo drug, and it gives you an extra month. It doesn't actually cure the cancer. It just gives you an extra month, but it's on patent. We charge $50,000 for a treatment, or maybe, give you a slightly better treatment for your heart disease, or your high blood pressure, your blood sugar problems. Okay, so you just take that. Meanwhile, all these people are running around saying, gosh, we're learning so much so quickly. We really want to try some new things. So I think there's an opportunity to speed things up. I think there's an opportunity to innovate differently. And there's certainly a lot of great books written about it, from Aubrey de Grey to David Sinclair, Ben Bickman, Why We Get Sick, Lifespan, and so forth. And these books really lay out great blueprints of how to think about slowing down the aging process, or at least trying to play around with it. And there's already some great innovations, some new like exosome therapies, and some old like the use of metformin, for example, and some supplements like NAD plus that have actually been shown to have really interesting signals. There's great researchers, like Elysium does this up at MIT, and dozens of others floating around. But we really live in a golden age. These biochips are being invented that you can test all kinds of things on. You have these amazing computer models that can simulate things that we never thought possible before. You can sequence the entire human genome. It used to be billions of dollars. Now it's hundreds of dollars. There's a company called Nebula that does that. There's actually a blockchain company they work with called Oasis Labs that actually makes you own the data and secure it, unlike 23andMe and these other guys. So it's a golden age that we're heading to, and especially with AI-assisted research. And it's my belief that if we get in early, we put a brain trust together and we look at everything. We look at the orthodoxy, the metformins that are starting to show real interesting clinical signals that are already FDA approved, to the unusual, almost pseudoscience like photobiomodulation and pulsed electromagnetic stuff and so forth. So PEMF and photobiomodulation, hyperbaric have been shown to do some really interesting things. There's an Israeli research group that's been studying that. So we'll look at all of these things and I'll have a really strong opinion, just like I do with cryptocurrencies, after we do the science, which means there's no substitute for meta-analysis and reading papers and writing papers and getting really qualified people together. And at some point, somewhere, somehow, we'll learn enough to be able to build a product. And I don't know what that product's going to be yet. All kinds of different things we could do. It'd be really cool, for example, to use autologous stem cells and do something there for wound treatment. Okay. But saying that's one thing, actually doing it is a completely different thing, and turning it into an entire product is a completely different thing. It'd be really cool to go after antibiotic resistance using bacteriophages. That very act can actually teach you a lot about the biology. You have to type phage to the bacteria, and that means you have to create some sort of gene that can do that stuff. Okay? But it's early days. So it'll be about 24, 36 months in silent mode, where I imagine we're not going to be announcing too much. We'll certainly be hiring, just like Elon Musk did with his BCI venture, Neuralink. And little by little, we'll start slowing stuff out. And we're going to do as much as we can in Wyoming. So we'll create some local jobs there, get some people to relocate and live out the winters. and then just right out of the blue, come up to you guys and say, oh, by the way, we got this thing. Take a look. And it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, this is a common one from Andrew Yang. He says, Charles, can I get your take on the progressive automation of our jobs through artificial intelligence and the implementation of some form of UBI, universal basic income? So the paraphrasing the argument is that we're just about to head into the fourth industrial revolution. And this revolution is not information, but it's an automation revolution where you have two pieces of technology that are evolving at a very rapid pace. One, robotics. So instead of these wonky little robots that go, danger, Will Robinson, clearly are toys, you now have robots that you watch the General Dynamics videos or the Boston, all these videos are coming out of the military, and you see robots running obstacle courses and doing somersaults and lifting heavy things and so forth. And they're clearly able to understand how to navigate and interact with an ambient environment in ways that were just science fiction 10 years ago. So if you chart that rate of evolution and you look at the advancement of the brains of these things, GPT-3 and GPT-4, people working on these things and how they're actually evolving at a massive pace, they're going to intersect at some point where you're going to have an agent that has the dexterity, agility, and strength and capabilities of a human, and the brain of, at the very least, a manual laborer. And what's going to happen is that plus some judgment, probably first with a human controlling a collection and eventually artificial judgment, means that that entity can now replace fast food workers, truckers, road workers, all kinds of people, or augment those people. So, for example, construction. You have your general contractor, and instead of having a carpenter, an electrician, foundation people, drywallers, floor people, tile people, you now have robots occupying the roles, supervised by that general contractor. 15, 20 people build a home, one person build a home, plus an automated crew that never gets tired. If they get broken, they don't sue you and they don't get injured, and basically always does their best work. And software updates mean they make better and better and better work. And then when you want to know how to build new materials, new patterns, all of those things will be downloaded into them. Like, for example, you want to from ICF. Suddenly they just download the ICF program, and now they know how to work with insulated concrete forms. Okay, ready to go. Even if the GCs doesn't have experience, the robots in the ground will. And then they're also going to do multi-purpose roles, like they can drive the trucks, and they don't need a CDL necessarily. They can work at night, they have night vision. They can work in the rain or incredibly cold and windy conditions, and most workers can't work in those. They can work in hostile conditions, like highly radioactive environments, oxygen poor environments, dangerous environments, like environments that have a lot of natural gas floating around, like mines, things like that. Okay, so there's this push towards this reality. And the question is, when that happens, are we going to see an exacerbation of the things we saw in the last 35 years in particular, where the billionaire class gets richer and richer and richer and richer and richer and richer, but the poor and middle classes, they don't grow in wealth? Now, there's a big political economic divide in why that's been occurring the last 35 years. If you talk to an Austrian economist, you talk to a libertarian, you talk to a conservative, their answer is it's the fiscal and monetary policy that's caused that reality. So those middle class and those poor people, they haven't gotten richer because the money in their pocket is losing value too quickly because of that monetary policy. Since 71, we've been off the gold standard, and you can actually plot from 1971 to today the value of the dollar, and you notice the buying power goes down. The wealthy get first access to the money and have all kinds of magic investments that are hedges against inflation. So the wealthy basically are in a position where no matter what the economic conditions are, they win. But the poor people only win when monetary policy is looking good. Okay, so you talk to the liberal economist and they say, well, no. The problem we have here is we don't have redistributionist tax policy, and the rich who have been getting richer and richer and richer, they should have a large chunk of their newfound wealth redistributed to society so no one gets left behind. And that is where UBI basically lives. It's nestled in that redistribution concept. And the basic idea is that all this new wealth that automation and AI is going to create for a small group of billionaires, we should take a meaningful percentage of it and then give it to all the people who will be displaced. The question is, will they really be displaced? We don't know. We actually don't have an answer. So far, the other three industrial revolutions that we've had, they actually were not displaced. Many new jobs were created. For example, we have new industries like professional gamer, VR, AR stuff. We have NFTs. We have gig economy. We have a lot of creative outputs, all these types of things where those people have been displaced. Maybe they go and do other things. There's plenty of people make money selling Warcraft gold. Maybe it's large enough to handle that displaced economy, assuming that people can self-retrain or the resources are available for that. Maybe they can't. There were people who were fine in the last few industrial revolutions. And so far the state was able to take care of them. Maybe they won't here. It's an interesting question. So where I believe UBI makes sense is not redistribution. Where I believe UBI makes sense is sovereign wealth fund. And a government invests billions of dollars every year into innovation, all these other things, for the good of its people, and to the education for the good of its people. The government should be spending more than it makes in of time of crisis. I don't like deficit economies. And a government with its surpluses should be investing that money and getting a return on that money, like Norway did with the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is now $1.4 trillion. Then it's not UBI. It's what Andrew tried to do, a freedom dividend. It's a dividend that you pay out from the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the people. That makes sense to me. I like ideas like that because it's not redistribution. It's not taking property from one person and giving it to another person. You arbitrarily decide, well, this person has too much. Well, I think the U.S. military has too much. $750 billion a year. And by the way, they just gave $85 billion worth of military hardware to the Taliban. I'm not so happy about that. Can we please redistribute some of that budget and give it to, oh, no, we can't do that. But we'll take some of mine because you obviously will do better with it, like go fight endless wars, go have a spy state, go take all my liberties and freedoms away and so forth, do a really poor job of fighting a pandemic. Yeah, you guys know what you're doing on the spending of my money. Redistribution to me is, I'm a bit cynical about it because I see in practice how money is spent. It's never enough. Once you get comfortable with this idea that you're entitled to $1,000 a month, why shouldn't you be $1,200? Why shouldn't you be $1,500? Why the arguments are all the same in that respect. Now, the only practical way of doing UBI is with cryptocurrencies because you need digital money, digital wallets, you need the ability to push value to every single registered account. What we saw with the bailouts and the stimulus checks with COVID in the United States, how difficult it was just to distribute money to people in a legacy way. So UBI is definitely interconnected to CBDCs. It's definitely interconnected to digital wallets and digital ID and so forth. And our industry this is not the last we're going to hear of it. Charles, what's the most unique thing about Cardano that no one will have or has? At the moment, it's the hard fork combinator. That's a very unique, bespoke piece of technology, and it gives us the ability to do upgrades easily in the system. And every chain that's lacking it, they're suffering right now, and we're doing good. Question from Fada. How to use DB Sync with a database different from PostgreSQL like MongoDB? There's an impedance mismatch when you go to a NoSQL system, but it's open infrastructure. And what will likely happen next year as the things change up is open infrastructure will become more diverse, and it'll be entirely possible to live in a NoSQL world. I like MongoDB. I think it's great to store things as JSON. I love JavaScript language. It's one of the very secrets. So it'd be really cool to see that work with DB Sync. But Postgres is an enterprise-grade database, and SQL is the standard in the industry, and those schemas make a lot of sense to us. And so it seemed like a very good target, but it would be nice to get some diversity, not just with Mongo, but also graph databases like Neo4j and other NoSQL databases like Redis and so forth. Awesome job, Charles. What are your thoughts on Shinichi Mochizuki, purported proof of the ABC conjecture? There's certainly a war between fields medalists about that. It's an old number theory conjecture from, I think, the 1970s, 1980s. What is not important. What's important about it is the fact that it's too hard to verify. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm setting up Hoskinson Center over at Carnegie Mellon. The reality is that you have these overly abstract, very technical proofs that come out, and it takes enormous amounts of brain power for people to actually verify them. And there's literally no incentive in the mathematical community for the verification of some of this work. So think of it this way. You're a young, recently graduated PhD in mathematics. Now, the way math works is that if you're in your 20s and early 30s, you're super productive. Then you have a radical decline in your productivity as you get into your 40s and 50s, and eventually you get to your 60s. You're not solving big things. So you have a finite career and a clock ticking mercilessly that if you don't do things in that finite career, you can't get tenure. You can't get into a good university for teaching. So if you're a graduate student, a postdoc, or a young professor, you look at something as daunting as the ABC conjecture, it's a Fields Medal class problem. So to get there and solve that without the luxury of tenure, you're probably not going to make much progress on it. Just like Fermat's last theorem, for example, one of those problems you don't work on. It's bad for your career. Or the Hailstone conjecture sequences, like the Syracuse problem, the Collatz conjecture. These types of things, they're too hard. Okay, so that group of people on their own devices aren't going to take the time to open up 250, 300 pages of mathematical prose, read super technical proofs. In many cases are ahead of their time. Because what Sunichi did is he didn't just prove something in his mind. He actually created new math, new tools, new things to actually prove it. Okay, so it's not a simple thing. And literally, you're going to have to spend 6 months to a year of extremely focused, deep work to get yourself to a point where you can have a strong opinion, unless you just so happen to be in that field, just so happen to be familiar with that research group. Now, Sunichi didn't make it easy for anybody. Normally, when you have the audacity to purport that you've solved a big problem, like the ABC conjecture or the Artin's conjecture or any of these things that are floating around the number theory world, you would go lecture, you'd go on tour, you'd spend some time with people. Like after Fermat's last theorem was proven, Silverman